Hi everyone, this is Pru and welcome to the Engineering Success Podcast. In today's episode, we're joined by Sarvesh, who will talk about his journey from Silicon Valley to managing tech teams in India. Sarvesh is the VP of AI at Accurate, and his previous startup was also in the AI space. We'll discuss a lot about AI given his background, emerging trends, building AI products, and creating the right teams to succeed in this space. Sarvesh, you worked in the US for about a decade managing software engineering teams, and then you moved back to India and have been building your startup and now building an AI org from scratch. So, can you tell us a little bit about managing engineering teams in the US versus in India?
Yeah, sure. Thank you for having me here, by the way. Yes, I've been in the US, was obviously a developer role, but then moved on from developer to a manager role. I used to manage the team of engineers, interns, while I was working on an R&D project, while I was in US. Again, building a team, managing a team in US, particularly is different than when I moved back to India. So it was a good transition experience in terms of how you should build a team and what are to do's and don'ts in terms of building and managing the team when I moved back. When I moved back, obviously I had my own startup and I was trying to build my own team. I got started the way I used to build in US, but obviously that kind of hit me back in terms of how it needs to be built. So that's where I realized that I need to be a little bit off on the, I would say, aggressive side in terms of hiring, understanding people, getting the knowledge, because the people that I used to hire in US, specifically in Silicon Valley, versus the talent that I used to get in here in India is totally different. So that's where I see a knowledge gap, and that needs to be filled up. And obviously, you can't just fill up the knowledge gap as is, and you have to like either train them, make them understand, ask them hard questions, ask the right set of questions, because that is very crucial for any leaders to get the right set of people for what they are looking for. And that's where I built my whole strategy in terms of hiring the right set of people, even though they are interns, but I would want to ask them a right set of questions, what I'm looking for, and try to see their approach. Right, that is one of the also another thing that I learned while I was in US versus in India. Right, how do you assess a person when you are hiring?
Okay.
How do you do that? So that's where I see a difference, and that made a huge difference in terms of what I have achieved so far in terms of building the team in India here.
So, are there any pointers that you look for that tells you about how to, like, I as a founder, CEO, and as someone you are right now setting up a AI org for a manufacturing company, right? Like that itself is something interesting that we'll talk about. And so I also spend a fair bit of time on thinking about hiring the right talent, nurturing talent. So do you have some things that some signals that you look for finding the right talent?
See, typically when I go for hiring, so typically see, I little bit of my background, right? So what I would typically do is I understand my own problems in terms of product and try to put them in a technical term, and put that in front of developers or leaders whom I'm going to hire. And I try to see their approach in terms of how they solve the problem. Right. For me, the problem solving skills is more important than they are able to write the code, or let's say they are able to solve the problem. Because for me, approach is the most important aspect rather than relying upon the end solution. And that is where I see a difference.
Very
Uh-huh.
interesting. Very
Yeah,
interesting.
so I think that's a key to any engineering leader or VP, CTO level person to understand the he with you and your team. And obviously you need to, one is obviously technical aspects to it. Other aspect I usually focus on is also his thought process, his ambitions, his skill levels, his attitude, right? Because at the end of the day, if you want to bring a person, maybe at the architect level, developer level, manager level, we need to see his attitude, whether he has the right set of attitudes for your company, or whether it's just like people. I think again, like this is where India and US are different. In India, a lot of people are hoppers. You would see a lot of hopper coming here just to hop on, get the salary increment, and go somewhere else. And that's where you need to analyze those set of people saying that, hey, you are not hiring a person who is just doing hopping here and there. And that's again, and and obviously thinking long term, ambition, right? Those are the three things that I would say that key factors that I would analyze in a person to understand how he is going to gel with the team.
Absolutely. I think problem solving, because as you said, the ability to solve problems is more important than their ability to code. And as we see more of these coding helper and assistants, I think some of the focus for dev teams or developers might also be shifting towards being able to understand architecture and spend time on architecture and spend time on problem solving. Whereas then with the coding part itself can be done with the help of the coding assistants like GitHub Copilot.
Correct, correct. Coding as such, but I typically look at their algorithm or look at their approach to the problem. And again, like this is coming from my US experience. During my US journey, right, I interviewed all big MNCs, specifically Microsoft multiple times, Google multiple times, and that's where I understood the style of interview, what typically Google is asking or what Microsoft is looking for. They are not looking for a person who is solving the problem. They are looking for a person who can solve the problem, who has an approach or who has a thought process to solve the problem. And that makes a whole lot of difference. Coding is, you can ask a chat GPT and you can get a code out of it, but you need to be able to ask the right set of question to chat GPT to get that answer. So that's the difference.
Absolutely. So I think slightly related topic that I want to address specifically with you is working on building a AI focused org at your current job. Can you tell us a little bit of background about that and how you are going about it, especially in a quite a heated environment with AI and finding the right talent for that, and what are the goals that you have for teams like this?
So see, AI, building AI is sort of like these days, every nook and corner you go, and one person has saying that, hey, I have an AI background, or I'm an AI enthusiast,
Hmm.
or I can do this, I can do that, and whatnot, right? But the key factor is again, do they have enough basics to 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 see what they are doing? For example, a person who doesn't have a math background and he's saying that I'm an AI enthusiast. It doesn't make sense. Though he might have coded in some open source repository and all that. Again, see the difference here is how I tackle is being a technology guy myself, like being at the VP level, being at the CTO level. I'm still use hands-on coding myself, right? That makes me a totally different person to analyze a junior level intern, a senior level manager, or a mid-level engineer, right? So I can analyze what they are talking about, whether they are just talking about an open source and then just modify few lines and then they say, hey, this is mine, right? I can really get that. That is where the difference at the level that I'm in. And especially encourage all the leaders and managers, VP level, CDO level, we try to be or technical domain as such, rather than just being at the manager level. That's one of the advice that I would want to have or give to all the leaders through your podcast.
So staying in touch with the technical side, even as you are progressing through the engineering career ladder.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And see, one way or the other is like you try to write some kind of algorithms. Right? You don't have to write a code or compile the code or do something, but you have to be close to the community, to close to the technical environment, so that you know what the team is building. You know what the people set of hiring. You know what to talk about when you are talking, let's say, at the conferences, seminars, talking to junior community, senior community, and senior level people, right? You get ideas of what needs to be talked about. That's where I see a difference.
Great. I wanted to touch upon how we talked about building teams, right? And one topic that keeps coming up for engineering leaders is how do you think about building a performance culture versus and balancing that out with managing the health of the team, maybe dealing with issues like burnout, etc., like that. I would love to know how you think about it.
See, every team needs to have a right set of balance, right? If you overbalance it out, let's say at the performance level, you might end up saying that, yes, I'm adding performing, overperforming, but there's no culture, there's no balance. And then people either start to, and you see a lot of attrition coming out, right? So there is always a consequence, which if you do some overdo some of the things, like let's say if you start building too much of over culture and less performance, then you will start seeing it in your product, and which is again like the customer will start running, right? So that's where you have to balance it out between how you want to build a culture and obviously how you want to build a performance. And that's where I still want to say that like you need to do obviously cultural activity, team building activities. Obviously, you need to be building that. But along with that, the performance perspective, in terms of so typically what I would want to do is my team, like let's say, obviously I get for me it's a good freedom that I have multiple because leading the R&D team, I have get to choose three, four different products or technologies that I can work on. Then I typically try to rotate my team so that one person doesn't get comfortable with one thing and then he starts to dominate the entire team, saying that, hey, I know this product end to end. And then he just starts to lead the team. And sometimes it get back on you, which is where I would typically try to rotate the team. Again, like it depends on the team culture, the team specifications, right? In terms of how many engineers you have and do you have a capability to rotate them or not. So it all totally boils down to that particular thing. So that's where I would want to see that, or I would want to see that if there is a right set of balance between performance and culture, yes, it has to be built, and then only the team grows. Team needs to be appreciated at the right set of time, at the right moment, in front of customers, or let's say for award ceremony or any of that. Right? That's where the team gets boosted, saying that hey, yes, we won the award. That's because of the team. And that's where like leaders has to come out and saying that, hey, this is my team's award, not my award, and something like that. And that's again like appreciated at the right moment for a person to give away to his team, and that's like a moral booster. So these are the small little things, but it's still needs to be done and executed.
I wanted to shift the focus a little bit about as engineering leaders, right? As you go up the engineering management kind of ladder, you of course have to start interfacing with other orgs inside the company. So it would be the business org, the exec teams, sales team, marketing team, what have you. How do you align with these teams, or how do you think about, or rather, the way I would put it is, how do you think about engineering leaders driving business outcomes? One of the questions that sometimes comes up in these discussions is about how can engineering leaders or engineering teams get a seat at the table? How do you think about it?
Uh, See, that's a great question actually. Typically, what happens is product-led team typically drives the business, I would say.
Hmm.
So obviously product comes from engineering perspective.
Hmm.
Now, what focus, like obviously there's a balance between sales and the product management and the actual engineering team and QA team, right? I would say that there's, in terms of understanding the balance again, salespeople try to overcommit sometimes or try to always oversell something which engineering might not agree on. But again, like this is not something that we blame on salespeople, saying that because salespeople are doing their jobs just to attract more customers, which is obviously in a right shape or right mindset perspective to get more business and revenue. But again, like in terms of that's where engineering leader and sales leaders should come together and saying that, hey, are you overcommitting, overselling in terms of whether we can build it? Now let's assume that there is one particular thing that we want to build, but yes, it might not be built in next maybe couple of years or it will take time. Even though we overcommitted, but if the engineering leader agrees to it, saying that we can build it in 2 years, 3 years, 3 years down the line, then obviously it can be sold. But again, like if you're selling something which is like far-fetched fruit which cannot be built at all, or it is out of completely scope of what we are trying to build, then it's an oversell or overkill of what you're trying to sell. So that's where the total difference comes into play. And that's where engineering leaders, sales, these people should sit together, try to understand what they're trying to sell, try to analyze the roadmap, try to put the roadmap in such a way that they can sell it and engineering people can build it. So there again, like it is a balanced approach, as I would say.
Do you think there is a danger of this overcommit happening in AI because you don't know where the line is, or it is easy to overpromise? Whereas with, let's say, traditional product requirements, right? If you're looking at any, let's say, because it's sales in a B2B context, if it's something that a competitor has, most likely you can build it. It's obviously you still need to architect and take care of security and all the other aspects. But in AI, like the line keeps shifting. And so sometimes customers might have unreasonable expectations, and it would be hard sometimes even for engineering teams to know whether that can be built internally. And sales teams are one step removed from that. So do you think there's slightly more danger of that happening, or have you noticed or heard stories of that happening now, right now?
Yes, I would say that actually, I would say that I would take that as a positive in terms of being an AI, right? You could come up and say that I can build it, right?
Hmm.
And even though you don't have capabilities right away, but you can say you can present it to the customer how you want to build it. Again, like that's beauty of let's say ChatGPT or a lot of LLM based applications these days. You
Hmm.
can project it or perspective it in such a way that you can still architect. Obviously, you will need to have. I'm not saying that you can build a product or feature, but you could also like you could present it. You can analyze it. You can understand the consequences, risks behind it. Right? So you can ask the right set of questions, and you get a right set of answers, and that can be predicted or perspective to the customer, which is actually a good thing in terms of what you're trying to see. And that's where I see AI is helping what we can build or how we can build the future of our product, our company. And that's where I see a lot of positives out of AI.
No, that's great, Sarvesh. Staying again, probably one of the last questions is, how are you thinking about engineering leaders and the job of engineering leaders in the age of AI? There has been a lot of chatter about AI disrupting so many roles, from creative roles like that of artists to developers. But what do you think happens to engineering managers and VPs in the age of AI?
See, again, I would say that yes, AI is disrupting, but I would, being an AI guy myself, I would say I would take that as a positive frame of mindset. And I don't want to say that AI is killing jobs. I would say that if you are not learning AI or not using the right set of tools, then probably yes, you might end up in a situation where you have to lose your job. But again, like if you, and that's where I would want to have leaders, VPs and CTOs to understand what tools are available, what is the right set of tools for me or my team that I should be using, and use it yourself
Hmm.
and make the team use it. For example, if you're not using ChatGPT, and you are obviously, I wouldn't say this, but if you're not using ChatGPT, then you're losing a lot of things, right? So as a leader, you should be one step ahead of what is being happening in the market. You should be using those right set of tools. You should be asking your team to see those right set of tools. Again, if you don't know the tools, if you are not using the tools, that's where you lag behind the timeline. This is one thing that I would definitely encourage all leaders, and that's where you have to like keep reading, have the technology in front of you all the time, and see where the technology is going, where the time is moving, what are the tools which are coming up, which are the useful tools, and see again, like, as I said, hiring, understanding the right set of tools. No AI can help you to tell you the tools. If you say a tool, you will get hundreds of tools. Which is the right tool for you to use? That's the call. And that's where you, as a leader, makes a difference, right? So at the end of the day, AI will guide you, but decision is totally depends on the leader. And that's where leaders are the decision makers. AI
Hmm.
is not a decision. AI is just a guiding you. So I think this is the line that I would want to tell all the leaders that no AI can replace any leader. AI will help you to, you just have to make the right set of calls to make that decision.
And it's in the interest of everyone, especially engineering leaders. to make sure that they're on top of the tools, the latest AI tools and advances. Do you
Yeah.
have any suggestions for any AI tools, or how do you stay updated on what's happening out there?
Again, like technology, forums, podcasts, and blogs and LinkedIn. That's definitely is up to the mark. And then obviously you'll have to go and try out some of the tools. Like for example, again, like I'm not uh, promoting any of the tools here, but I'm just naming few of the tools which I typically use are like obviously ChatGPT is one, the Bard, Google's,
Yeah.
which is definitely another one. The third one I would recommend that everyone should at least try to use it is Perplexity.ai.
Yeah.
So it's pretty nice tool. So definitely helpful for leaders because what Perplexity does is it gives you the context of what is being asked, and it gives you right set of papers or technical blogs or diagrams, which or again like helps you to move your technology in the right direction. See, there are many ways to find right talents. Obviously, being in India, you everyone wants to have their talent in like either from IITs or big organizations like NITs and all that. But obviously, that's not true for everyone or at every nook and corner that you would see these kind of things. Right, that is where you would need to be like asking right set of questions to the candidate, and that is one of the tricks that I typically use, let's say for interns or for junior engineers, is give the problem statement that you are currently being solved in your organization or in your product roadmap, or let's assume that there is a product feature that you are trying to build. Ask them the same question, give them the same problem statement, see their approach towards, and give them some time. Let's say, for example, I typically give them, hey, take 5 days for your assessment, right? Come back with your assessment. And see, as an engineering leader, you would understand who has copied it and who has done it on its own part. And that's where you would have to be like a little uh, assertive in terms of understanding what person has implemented and whether that is the right set of implementation that he has done. Again, don't look at the implementation. I would rather look at the approaches. Look, let's say sometimes I do find people who have copied entire thing from somewhere, some GitHub, and then they come back and say that, hey, this is and if you ask them to explain the code, they won't explain the code. So that's where like you see difference who has copied it. Again, like this is where one of the tactics that you can use. And this again, like this for junior engineers or interns. Same goes for leaders or architects or manager levels.
Hmm.
You would ask the same set of questions that you're facing day in, day out, and ask them to solve that problem and see how they are solving it. Whether, let's say, for example, you have a team building exercise and you're hiring for a manager, how you typically go and ask them, hey, this is the team that I want to build, this is the product that I want to build, help me build the team, right? And ask his approach, what is the right sort of approach that he takes, right? So again, like understanding when you're hiring a team, asking the right set of questions is very crucial. The talent, for example, I do get some talent which is hidden talent. I would say that
Hmm.
you typically get in from the rural part of India as well, where you have a lot of talent. Like, you do not go to IITs and IIMs, and you these days you are hearing there's a lot of non-IITian people coming out as well. So that's where I see a difference. Like don't just run around the IITs and all that.
Hmm.
Now, second point that I would want to bring, this is one way to look at it. The second point is we typically want to do, like, let's say, wherever you are building your company, whether it is in metros or non-metros or wherever. I imagine that it is typically in metros. So you typically go and find out some of the colleges nearby. Obviously, these are not IITs and IIMs. Again, like I'm going away from IITs and IIMs because IIT IIMs are like a solved problem to me.
Hmm.
But let's assume that you are not around IITs and IIMs and you don't have the leverage or luxury to get those talent, and that's where you try to get in contact with the university, get a sign up and COE with them, right? Center of Excellence, right? And try to give them some of the problem statements to Center of Excellence and let them solve those problems in the university area. Right?
Hmm.
Again, like right set of questions, right set of problem statements given to set of students. That's where what happens is industry mentor, the college mentor can come together and solve the problem. Obviously, two things helps. One is the problem gets solved. The second one is obviously you get the right set of candidates that you are looking for.
Hmm.
Okay, this is where I would see that a lot of talent comes out, and this is very important to have the university and industry connect to get the right set of training people. And you don't have, obviously, you don't have to train the people because university does that for you and you problem solve. Again, like this is a very mature way of, again, solving some of the resource hiring problem. I'm only talking from the junior perspective. Obviously, for leaders and VP level architecting, you still have to go through the same route. But this is one way to like tackle.
Yep.
And in terms of balance of the team, one of the things that I wanted to mention was how do you balance the team, right? What set of balance that you would want to have in your team to make sure that I have a right set of team. Now, to address that, obviously, I would love to have the hierarchy. Again, this is where my difference came from US to India. US typically doesn't have any hierarchy. Like, for example, if you go to US Google Office, you will see a lot of software engineers. One might be 60-year-old, one might be 20-year-old.
Mm.
So that is where the difference lies. There are no typical hierarchies in US, but in India, it doesn't work that way, unfortunately.
Mm.
So you need to have a right set of hierarchy in India, asking right set of questions at each level. So I typically would want to have my hierarchy, which is like a standard hierarchy where you have either CTO and then the VP and then the engineering managers, leaders, and then the architects, and then the senior and junior software engineers, and then interns. Right. So these are set of mix and match at each level, like obviously software and then the QA level, and each feature perspective, what feature you are building. So that's where I would align my team accordingly.
That's great. And especially your point about junior talent, if you're hiring junior talent or fresh talent, building that relationship with a few universities and their center of excellence, I think that can be a great strategy.
That's all for today on the Engineering Success Podcast. Thank you so much for being with us. Stay tuned for more.